week, I want to talk about something very different. I'm in sort of a reflective mode these days and thinking about the opportunities that I've had in court. And I've actually been to court a couple of times. I've never been sued. I have sued a couple of clients and won. And for non-payment, and only once for a balance that was due, and then another time for a cancellation that they didn't want to pay the full amount. And what I want to talk about today, though, is how to avoid going to court, because I think we're all terrified of going to court. But next week we're going to talk about how to win if you go to court. But first, let's talk about how to avoid it. The simplest way to avoid, and I'm saying court, and really I'm talking about conflict, right? Whether it goes to court or small claims court or just online bashing or any of that stuff, how to avoid that. And the first thing is making sure that you are crystal clear in all of your communications, that you talk directly to people as frequently as possible and avoid texts, emails, that sort of stuff. If you do an email ever, and we'll talk more about this next week, but if you do it, if you ever are sending somebody an email, always keep in mind that email is something that may someday be an important piece of information. But write down everything that you're going to do and make sure the client understands what things you're going to do and what things you're not going to do. And when it comes to things as simple as a music list, I don't believe in limiting people to 10 songs that are must plays and 10 do not plays. Like, from my perspective, I don't care. Put as many things on there as you want, because then we're going to have a conversation about it afterwards. And the conversation will be something that they'll understand a little clearer when we get to that. Make sure that your contract is clear about what you do. And this is not legal advice, this is just Randy advice. I would avoid having contracts that are written in legalese, that are too lengthy. My contract that I used for years, I wrote myself and then submitted it to an attorney, which I think is a way better way to go than having an attorney write it, because they write like attorneys. I wanted to just write it like a person, and then give it to an attorney to make sure that it would hold up and that it was good. But it's short, it's sweet, it's their names on the contract, date, time, place, what services we're going to provide, very clear cancellation clause, and it's big type, one page. We only really have 2 paragraphs on the whole thing of text, and it's big type, and there's not a lot to it. So it's really crystal clear. Now, you all know that people will agree to a non-refundable deposit forever until it's time that they want their money back because they're changing their date or canceling their date or whatever, and all of a sudden non-refundable seems like a horrible, unfair thing. So you've got to be really clear why, and that's probably the biggest thing that we all face, right, is not giving somebody's money back. And we'll have an episode in the future about cancellations and my take on how to handle those. But it has to be written in such a way they understand up front, even if they need to be reminded of it later, and something that will stand up in court. We'll talk again more about that next week. So avoid court by talking to people or conflict. Talk to them instead of writing. When it gets dicey, then you start writing things down, right? But in the beginning, pick up the phone, right? Call somebody up. Things change. People are, just like we are on social media. We're just brutal to each other on social media, but in person, we're all much nicer about it. So if you do those things, you'll eliminate all of those issues. And be clear. Don't promise what you can't deliver. If you need something from them, a week in advance, then you have to follow up. Don't expect them to do all that. You need to follow them up, 2 weeks in advance. Say, hey, don't forget, this deadline is coming up next week. Do those things. You'll avoid all of the conflicts. Should the inevitable happen, and we've all been there with the unreasonable client, then there are ways to make sure that you're guaranteed to win. The running joke around here is I am undefeated in court. That is through my DJ business. I went through a divorce, and a lot of you know that men don't fare well in divorces. And although it cost me a lot of money, undefeated every single round in court. So there are ways to do that, and it's just the biggest key is by being reasonable. We'll talk about that more next week, but hope these help you for today.